Hi, I'm Fiona, and I like to make 3D animations.
That sounds pretty boring.
I use my hair to express myself.
In this video, I'll show you how I learned to make these animations and my current animation process. This will be more of a story and roadmap than a tutorial, so I've linked some useful and easy resources to use if you do end up doing 3D animation. Imagine this. I'm sitting in my 8th grade math class, very bored. Any remotely fun websites are banned on the school-issued computers, and they're so slow that attempting to run a video game would be a fire hazard. Suddenly, I remember a program I heard of called Blender. I had seen it used on YouTube to create cute 3D animation memes, and also heard it was sometimes used in one of the architecture classes, which meant it wasn't banned. And that's how I ended up using any free time I had left, waiting for classes to end, attempting to learn Blender. Keep in mind, I had no access to any tutorial websites, so my learning method was just to slam all the buttons until I got results. Here is one of my earliest pieces, a weird, colorful stack of blocks that moves in an uncanny, sort of squishy way, and I loved it. At this point, I had my own computer and was excitedly learning 3D animation. I made all sorts of weird beginner animations, a bedroom scene with comical proportions, many failed rigs, some nightmare fuel, and finally, my first animation. Notice here how my 3D models are all made of basic shapes like spheres and cones? In Blender, the only way I knew how to add shapes was the preset ones. Without a tutorial, I didn't know you could even make your own shapes in edit mode. Maybe slamming all the buttons wasn't an efficient learning method. From here, I uploaded many more animations, mostly animation memes and map parts. Alright, welcome to the program itself, Blender. Look at that beautiful gray expanse. Before making any animations, you have to make a model, and before you make a model, you have to have a rig, and before you have a rig, you have to have a base. Here are 3 bases I've made. They're blank 3D forms to put your characters on top of. The mesh itself can't move, but that's why you build a rig. I use this tool called armature to create bones inside of the model, and then glue the mesh to the bones. I told you, nightmare fuel. After that, I use pose mode to move the bones, which moves the mesh around. This method of sticking the mesh to the armature is based on traditional stop-motion animation, in which clay was added to a wire armature which could bend and pull the clay. You could start animating your character now, but just look how boring it looks. You've got to add some color. I use UV Smart Project to flatten out the mesh into one image, so I can color on the mesh. I haven't fully mastered adding clothes or hair to my models yet, but here are some of my best attempts. Hair especially can take hours, as making this intricate texture requires a lot of patience. Retro's hair here is so fluffy, I had to separate it into 4 parts that move independently to get the movement right. How do I get the hair to move? I simply stuff bones inside the hair that automatically deform when the mesh moves and settle back into the original position. There are so many parts of the rigs that need bones. The body, the hair, the skirt, the tail, the ears, the eyes. Without the mesh, it just looks horrific. After all of that work, you have the finished... Oh, wait, the mouth isn't moving. Right, shape keys. I use shape keys to create a bunch of mouth positions for the rig. Sliding these bars transitions the mouth from one key to another. Some people would put more bones in the mouth, but I always found this way easier and more precise. Alright, and now you are really done. All you have to do now is animate the character. Wait, why is it so dark in the gray void? Lighting and backgrounds. You might be able to tell from my animations that I find them kind of tedious. Most of the time I just sketch up a 2D background because I don't want to 3D model all that. But yes, you probably will have to make these. The landscape add-on helps with this by making the ground, and then you just make everything else as normal. Thankfully, there are usually no bones involved. Unless you want doors, you can't have boneless doors. Lighting is pretty easy. You add these light objects, and then you can fiddle around with types, sizes, colors, brightness. While it is easy to get even lighting, it can be tricky to use it to your artistic advantage. But that is more of a general scene composition skill than a 3D modeling one. It's done, your beautiful animation. That sure was a lot of work, but once you get it all set up, you don't have to do it all over again. That's one of my favorite parts of 3D animation, as opposed to 2D. You model the character once and simply pose it around without worrying about consistency or proportions and such. Some of the map parts I make only take me about a day because I already have all of the models. I just have to animate them and edit them in a program. Much faster than 2D animation. Thanks for watching to the end. There are links to tutorials and examples in the description. You can see more of my art on the right, or if you really like this, you can subscribe on the left to be notified when I make more cool stuff. Goodbye!